I think one of the things about it, if you take a map and look at the design, it's very much, some roads are a straight line parallel to the old line, and it's all been done in a reasonably sensible way. The A12 is like a snake, it's exactly like this. So when you drive on the A12, what you're faced with is a series of very long curves. What that means is that traffic is travelling quite quickly, and then with very little notice, if traffic begins to back up, everything has to stop very abruptly because you've come into the line of sight. Whereas if it had been built as a dedicated road, you would have half a mile or a mile's line of sight down the road, and people could drive in a more appropriate style. But because of the way that the road weaves like this, people forget that you can't see very far, and then when they do have to stop, they have to stop very quickly. Of course, that's either causes collisions or it's very turbulent in terms of stop-start.
And also you've got your 3 and 2 lane variation, isn't it? So you've obviously got merging traffic because of this, the way it sort of goes from 3 to 2 and back to 3, etc.
We've had proposals for things like speed limits across the whole of the road and overtaking restrictions. I know we discussed that a bit with him before. Do you have a view about those from a Hauliers point of view?
We'd obviously like to see more crawler lanes otherwise. What do you mean, the restriction of like no overtaking?
That's one.
No overtaking on certain short sections of dual 2 lane.
We have sort of, I suppose the jury's out a wee bit on that from the RHA's point of view. We've been looking at the M42 section and the obviously the A14 trials as well. At the moment, the results seem to be coming in. It doesn't seem to be much disbenefit to HGVs and some positive benefits to motorists.
That chimes with what you told us last time.
Yes, I think that just going back to the overtaking ban, the issue of course becomes clearly if you've got one vehicle going at 50 and another going at 51, that doesn't make sense. If you have an exceptional load going 20 miles an hour or a tractor or whatever, then of course you would hope to see a degree of flexibility that certain vehicles would be allowed to pass. That's common sense really, I suppose. I mean, in terms of an overall speed limit, I don't think we touched on this previously. I mean, I think given the kind of treacherous nature of the road, that if there was a lower speed limit along large stretches of it, that for our members' point of view, that would have no disbenefit at all, because even at 60 or even at 50 miles an hour, that's the speed at which many of our members' vehicles are restricted anyway. So 60 miles an hour would be no problem at all, and 50, a lot of people, that's about the speed that they would be going at normally.
I mean, that happened on the A3. They reduced the speed limit down to 50, so up near the hook into the underpass. That used to be 70, but there was a lot of accidents again with traffic merging, very fast moving traffic. That was reduced down to 50.
And the experience with that was it was not a particular problem. I mean, it evened out the flow. Question. I just don't know what they don't know the example.
Well, I think if there's no differential between different types of vehicle, if everybody's constrained to 50, then there's no point trying to overtake.
Okay. So there'll be no disbenefit to you from speed, but you would get a benefit if it had the effect of evening out the flow, stopping all this concertinaing and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Do you know the lay-bys on the A12? I don't know whether you know of them. Some are modern with separator curbs and a running lane and a parking lane, so they are a lot safer. Some of the traditional kind of 1950s types where it's
just wide enough.
Just wide enough and not much by way of an on-off access lane either. Do you have a view about whether the overall lay-by provision on the A12 is sufficient? One certainly sees a lot of HGVs parked up there at various times, particularly during the night. Or is that entirely related to the issue of adequate truck stop facility off the road?
I would say it's because that's the only place for them to go. I mean, I again, talking to a driver, he said there was lots of lay-bys. I think I was given an example, when in fact, again, one just off the A12, which is on the A120, which has just been opened up, which has a 24-hour snack bar on it and space for 6 HGVs. So as you say, that the modern ones like that with facilities and toilets, because that's the biggest problem, there's no toilets.
Yes.
And obviously environmental problems that brings.
Yeah.
I think that there is a general issue that it's difficult to champion, as you described, in the older lay-bys. I mean, that's why on the A14 a lot of lay-bys are being taken out of use, because the driver either had to climb out into the carriageway
Yes, that's right.
or onto the barbed wire fence.
Yes.
You know, take your pick. And of course there were lots of, the big problem was about collisions, people rear-ending trucks
Absolutely.
in the dark, which is invariably fatal collision. So I'm not trying. I wouldn't seek to defend those. But if there is a policy of removing them, there should be a policy of like for like.
Yeah.
No, you know, you shouldn't be reducing numbers, which is the current seems to be the current HA thing about we'll take them out because they're not safe, but it's somebody else's responsibility to make replacement provision.